My birthday began with joy until my mother's cruel card unleashed years of hidden insults. I replayed every barb, leaned on my best friend's support, confronted her by email, endured her dismissive reply, then found solace in strangers online and reclaimed my worth. I woke up to the pale glow of sunrise seeping through my blinds, heart thumping with that familiar thrill. Today's my birthday. I'm Jenna Alvarez, 26 years old, and I live in a tiny loft apartment in Portland, Oregon. The morning felt soft like promise, so I rolled out of bed and padded over to the coffee maker before grabbing the stack of cards waiting on my kitchen counter. I thumbed through the cheerful covers, cartoon cupcakes, watercolor balloons, handwritten notes from friends I haven't seen in months. My smile grew wider with every card. Happy journey around the sun. Can't wait to celebrate tonight. You're my favorite human. I sipped bitter coffee and let each message sink in. This was the best part of birthdays. But then I hit the bottom of the pile and froze. There it was. A plain white envelope in my mother's neat cursive, already bent at the corners as if it had been carried in her purse for weeks. The paper felt different beneath my fingers, thicker, almost weighty. I swallowed hard and tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of pale blue stationery. I unfolded it with a jolt of anticipation, and then saw the poem. The words stung like ice. Another year of hopes unmet, still you dwell in half-lit dreams where your quirks like safety nets hide behind your fragile schemes. The poem went on, line after line, each verse dripping with sarcasm, digs at my flaky ambitions, jokes about my hipster job in marketing, and that final barb, if you aim for anything, aim for less. At the bottom, in smaller script, she'd signed Love, Mom, as if cruelty and love could share the same line. I stood motionless, coffee forgotten, the card trembling in my hand. My chest tightened, breath catching as though my lungs had turned to stone. The morning light suddenly felt too bright, exposing every shadow I'd tried to forget. A laugh caught in my throat, harsh, broken, because I couldn't tell if I was supposed to be hurt or furious. My childhood birthday traditions flashed behind my closed eyelids. Mom baking my favorite chocolate cake, me blowing out candles while she smiled, eyes glistening with pride. All of it fractured now. In that moment, the world tilted, and the warmth I'd taken for granted collapsed into a cold, raw ache. I let the card fall to the counter, unreadable tears trailing down my cheeks. Funny, I thought, how one little piece of paper could shatter everything I believed. My heart pounded so loud I was sure the walls could hear it. I straightened, fingertips brushing the edge of the creased envelope. I had to decide what to do next, but the words kept running through my mind, louder with each heartbeat. And just like that, my perfect birthday morning lay in ruins. How long had she been hiding that tone beneath her smiles? I shouldn't have been surprised. The first knife twisted long before today. As I sat on the edge of my bed, card discarded on the floor, my mind drifted back through birthdays past. That time, when I turned 17, Mom stood behind me in the kitchen, arranging candles on my strawberry shortcake. She murmured, loud enough for me to catch, "You're the only one in our family who can't pick a decent hairstyle." I remember the way the laughter in the hallway faltered when it reached me. My 20th birthday party, thrown by college friends in Seattle, felt like freedom. Yet Mom phoned me that night, voice hollow with forced cheer. "I hope your little stage performance goes well at that marketing company. Don't embarrass yourself." She called my internship a stage performance. My cheeks burned even though I tried to laugh it off in front of my roommate. I see it now, each forced smile in my mind's eye, the way her eyes never quite met mine. The offhand remark about my too bright lipstick when I went out dancing at 22. The casual jab at my impractical dream of writing poetry last spring. Every photo, I'm leaning in toward her, hopeful while she's looking away, lips pressed in a tight line. Back in my loft, morning light cut through the blinds like slashes across the hardwood floor. I picked up the blue card again, fingertips ghosting over the cruel rhyme. The hush of the apartment made each word louder, sharper. I traced the sarcasm of her jokes. Flaky ambitions, fragile schemes. It clicked, this wasn't a one-off slip. It was water seeping through cracks, year after year, until the walls of my confidence crumbled. I swallowed, heart dragging. I tucked those memories into a dusty corner, believing that love was worth the cost of small cuts. I'd smiled through the remarks, hugged her tight, convinced myself she just had a strange humor. Family harmony, I'd whispered to myself so many times, was more important than my bruised pride. But the card exposed the truth. The laughter was at my expense, the advice poisoned. I slid down the wall, knees hitting the floor with a dull thud, and hugged my shins. The ache there was old, an ache I'd nursed in silence, buried under gratitude for the life she gave me. Gratitude that felt bankrupt now. Outside, a neighbor's dog barked and the noise rattled me. The harsh morning light, once comforting, now pressed against my eyes. It was as if the sun itself judged my soft heart, showing every crease I tried so hard to smooth out. I closed my eyes, hands tightening into fists. How many times had I pretended nothing hurt? How many cakes had we shared, candles blown out while she slipped a barb into her smile? I breathed in shallow, ragged pulls, the thin air tasting of regret. My phone lay on the bed, buzzing silently with unread messages. The world was waiting, Friends planning tonight's gathering, my best friend expecting a cheerful thank you. But my chest felt too heavy for thanks, too bruised for joy. I opened my eyes and looked at the card again, its text blurring. Each letter seemed to mock me, daring me to face the years I'd sacrificed for a love that wasn't real. I pressed the card to my heart, willing myself to feel the pain fully. This can't be it, I thought, but my heart already knew the answer. The hurt was too deep, and the pattern too clear. And now, under this unforgiving light, there was no turning back. What do I do when the only person I trusted proves to be my own worst enemy? My chest, tight as a vise, finally gave way as I collapsed onto the couch, the morning sun now a harsh spotlight on my unraveling. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through our old text threads, hundreds of messages, each one a stealthy cut masked as concern. There was the night she reminded me that your friends aren't real friends, Jenna, then a morning note praising my cute little job but warning me not to get too full of yourself. I paused, thumb hovering over the next message. Stop chasing that silly poetry. You're not cut out for it. Tears blurred the screen as I realized I'd rationalized each slight, dismissed each jab as just her way. I shook my head, feeling both foolish and furious. How long had I let her rewrite my story? I let the text fall from my fingers, tapping the couch cushion white-knuckled. My phone rang Amber. My best friend's name flashing on the screen felt like lifeline. I answered before it went to voicemail. Hey, I managed, voice uneven, throat raw. Jenna. Sound terrible, Amber said, concern knitting her words. I closed my eyes, chest heaving. It's my mom, I whispered. She sent me this card. I let her hear the tears I'd bottled for years. Talk to me, Amber urged. I choked back a sob and opened the card on speaker. She wrote me a poem, I said, voice cracking. About how I'm a disappointment. It's cruel, Amber. There was a pause, heavy enough I imagined it'd wait. Then Amber's soft inhale. Jenna, I'm so sorry, she said finally. That's not okay. Her empathy felt like balm on raw skin. I sank deeper into the cushions, phone pressed to my ear. I thought I was over it, I confessed, voice small. I thought this was just one bad moment. My thumb brushed a line from the card. Hide behind your fragile schemes. Those words echoed, but it's always been there. Amber stayed silent, letting me fill the space with my memories of birthday cakes laced with backhanded compliments, holiday dinners punctuated by subtle insults, and those late-night calls where she asked why I wasn't more practical. Each confession made my chest ache anew, but telling it aloud made it real. When I finished, Amber was quiet a moment longer. You don't deserve that, she said finally, voice firm. You deserve love, Jenna, and you're not alone. Her words cracked through the silence, but the loneliness I'd carried for so long still weighed heavy. I glanced at the card on the coffee table, its cruel verses now seared into my mind. The apartment felt too small, the shadows too close. Amber's next words felt like a promise. I'm here, she said. Anytime you need me, I'm there. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Gratitude mingled with grief. I wrapped the phone cord around my finger, knuckles white, and lifted my gaze to the window. The light was shifting now. Bright glare softened to a pale afternoon glow, but its warmth didn't reach me. I need to do something, I whispered. Amber's voice was immediate. I'll help you. But helping how? I didn't know yet. The line went quiet except for my shallow breaths. I realized that hearing the truth aloud had opened a wound I couldn't bury again. My mother's words had torn away my armor, and now there was only bare skin, vulnerable to every sting. What do I do when the past I've hidden becomes the only thing I can't escape? I stepped out into the early afternoon air and felt the weight of that card like a stone in my coat pocket. The sun was warm on my face, but inside I was brittle. One false move and I'd shatter. I hailed a bus and watched Portland streets blur past, neon signs and coffee shops promising respite. I needed distance. A corner cafe I'd loved in college, I ordered a lavender latte and my go-to almond croissant, then picked up a new notebook and pen from the shelf by the door. I found a window seat, heart still hammering as I laid out my tools. Pastry, journal, my mother's cruel poem tucked in my pocket. I took a careful bite, flaky layers melting on my tongue, but every word from that blue stationery pulsed behind my eyes. My pen hovered over the blank page, ink tip trembling. Should I pour my anger into this notebook? Should I write a letter to her, raw and unfiltered, even if I never sent it? A barrister reached over as she refilled my cup. That's a lovely necklace, she said, pointing to the delicate moonstone at my collarbone. Her smile was genuine, her eyes kind. Where'd you get it? I blinked, startled by the interruption. Thanks, I said, tracing the silver chain with my fingertip. It was a gift from my grandmother. She nodded, leaving me with a warmth I hadn't felt all day. I looked back at my journal, the pages waiting. The morning's nausea eased for a moment, replaced by something softer, fragile, hope maybe. But then I remembered the poem's final barb. If you aim for anything, aim for less. The words weren't just insults, they were instructions baked into my upbringing. I exhaled and flipped to the first blank line. Should I write the letter here? I pictured my mother reading it, her eyebrows arching, that half smile as she prepared her next singer. Too much, she'd say, overdramatic. The thought curdled my fleeting calm, so maybe I'd let go. Let the poem slip through my fingers like coffee grounds. Then I felt the ache in my chest, the years of whispered doubts bubbling up. Am I enough? Is my work a joke? Will I ever be more than her disappointment? Writing might help me release it, but could I live with the words unspoken? I tore off a clean sheet and for a dizzying moment wrote "Dear Mom" before stopping. The D hovered, taunting me. I swallowed. The pastry grew stale in my mouth. Outside, the world moved on. A group of students laughed in the street. A cyclist whizzed by in neon spandex. The cafe's hum felt like a different universe, one where people didn't agonize over every syllable of a poem meant to hurt them. My latte stood half-drunk, swirling purple foam and milk. I could leave it, walk out, and pretend none of this happened. But that would be letting her win again. I pressed pen to paper and closed my eyes. My breath stuttered. Could I finally call it what it was? Abuse? Could I let my anger match her venom? Or should I just scribble empty lines and move on? My fingers gripped the pen tighter, knuckles white against the notebook's spine. The choice was mine, and it felt terrifying. Is this the moment I face her cruelty head-on, or do I bury it one more time and risk losing myself forever? I closed my journal and stood, notebook tucked under my arm like a shield, determination hardening in my chest. Back in my loft, I booted up my laptop, the glare of the screen magnifying every doubt that fluttered in my gut. My mother's words echoed in the silent room as I opened a new email. To Mom, subject, we need to talk. My fingers hovered above the keys. I imagined her reading each sentence, her sharp eyes scanning for flaws. Still, I began to type, raw and unfiltered. Mom, I can't keep pretending your insults are jokes. I've spent 26 years chasing your approval, only to be ridiculed for every choice I make. You write me cruel poems disguised as advice, belittle my work, and dismiss my dreams. I deserve respect, honesty, and love, not sarcasm and second-hand embarrassment. I won't gloss over this any longer. Your words have hurt me deeply, and I need you to acknowledge the pain you've caused if you want a relationship with me. My heart thundered as I paused. The email felt like laying bare my soul and risked shattering it further. I deleted the draft and stared at the empty text box, chest tightening. What if she replied with anger? What if she never replied at all? I reopened my notes, copying fragments of cruelty, a litany of old texts, the barbs from birthdays, the poem's final line. Aim for less. I pasted them below my plea. You're too sensitive, this is all in your head. Maybe focus on finding a real job. If only you weren't so dramatic. I let the list stand on its own, a testament to all I'd endured. Then I wrote the hardest line. I love you, but I refuse to stay silent anymore. My throat burned at the confession. Love shouldn't taste like ash. My cursor blinked on the send button, a tiny heartbeat of possibility. Doubt washed over me in hot waves. Am I too demanding? Maybe I asked for too much. She's my mother, shouldn't I swallow my pride? Voice of every apology she'd ever forced from me whispered, I'm sorry for hurting you. Please forgive me. But I knew it was a script she never learned by heart. 7 drafts later, I reread the email in one breath. It was honest, painful, and final. My finger trembled as it hovered over send. I pictured the email winging through cyberspace, crossing state lines to land in her inbox in Pasadena, California. The distance felt like a lifeline. I closed my eyes, inhaled, and clicked. The click echoed in the empty room, louder than any slam of a door. I stared at the blank screen, pulse pounding in my ears, waiting for the chime of her response. Nothing happened. My breath hitched as the cursor spun, a tiny spiral of dread. I leaned forward, hand poised to refresh, but stopped. I couldn't tear it open again. I had said enough. I slid out of my chair and crossed to the window, watching the gray sky press against the city skyline. Sunlight peeked through clouds, soft promise or cruel tease. I couldn't tell yet. I closed my eyes, chest raw, and whispered into the quiet. I hope this changes something. But what if it changes everything? The afternoon sun dipped low, slanting golden across the hardwood floor as I paced the loft, eyes flicking to my laptop like a prisoner watching a locked cell. My heartbeat drummed in my ears with every second that passed. 5 minutes, 10, 15. I told myself she needed time. I told myself not to expect a reply. When my inbox finally refreshed, a single new message appeared. We need to talk. My stomach twisted. I clicked. Jenna, I'm sorry you feel this way. I didn't realize you were so sensitive. I was only joking. I've always tried to push you to be practical. Dreams don't pay the bills. If you can't take a joke, maybe you shouldn't pick fights with your own mother. I love you, but you need to toughen up. Mom, my chest went hollow. Her words, carefully measured, washed over me in a cold tide, washing away hope. I didn't realize you were so sensitive. As if sensitivity were a flaw to be cured. Only joking, the perfect excuse to dismiss years of cruelty. I sank to the floor, laptop clattering shut. Air throbbed around me, heavy and brittle. I pressed my palms against my eyes, mind churning. She blamed me. I was the problem. I was dramatic, too needy, too soft. Hours earlier, I believed her apology impossible, but I craved it. I imagined her writing, tears in her eyes, regret in her voice. Instead, I got condescension. The card's cruelty had been rehearsed, the email a performance of denial. There would be no genuine remorse. I pushed myself upright, hands shaking as I dug my mother's poem from my pocket. The blue edges were frayed now, words blurred by tears. I read aloud. Hide behind your fragile schemes. My own voice cracked. She had weaponized love into a justification for control. I pressed the card to my chest and felt nothing but weight. Loft felt too small. I flung open the window, the cool evening breeze carrying distant traffic hum. I watched clouds drift across a bruised sky. Somewhere beyond these streets, my mother sat in air-conditioned comfort, convinced she'd done nothing wrong. Anger flared, bright, scorching. How dare she blame me? How dare she call herself loving? My tears blurred vision, then froze as clarity struck. This was the fullest portrait of her abuse. No twist of phrase could soften it. No plea could break through. I closed my fists, nails digging into my palms, tasting iron. The realization washed over me like a breaking wave. There would never be the apology I craved. There would never be acknowledgement of the years she'd chipped away at my confidence. She would never see me. My breath hitched, guilt and grief warring in my chest. I sank against the sill, legs folded beneath me, and let the dusk deepen around me. I was alone in this truth, and yet, paradoxically, free from the illusion that she would change. I pressed my forehead to the cool glass and whispered to the empty sky, I understand now. No tears came, just a hollow resolve. The source of my deepest wounds had revealed herself fully, and I could no longer pretend otherwise. Night settled in, stars pricking the dark. The city lights flickered below, indifferent. I watched and felt something shift inside, a fracture, raw but real. And the person who should protect you becomes the architect of your pain. What do you do next? I woke to silence heavier than any rebuke. The glow of my phone screen lit the dark apartment, no new messages, no apologies. My fingers hovered over the power button before I shoved it aside. I couldn't face the void in my inbox again. I wandered through rooms like a ghost, mind replaying her last lines. You need to toughen up. They rang in my ears. I found myself back at my laptop, opening the email thread to reread her apology, if you could call it that. My eyes burned as I scrolled, tears blurring her dismissive words into stinging haze. Each line was a reminder that the person who should have been my refuge had become its destroyer. I closed the laptop and stepped into the kitchen for water, but passed my phone on the counter. A notification popped up from Instagram. New post by @ToxicFamilisteries. Someone had shared a thread about breaking free from emotionally abusive parents. I hesitated, thumb poised over the screen, then tapped it. Stories poured in beneath the post. Strangers confessing the sharp edges of their childhoods, the wounds that never healed, the moment they finally spoke out. I read about parents who twisted love into control, about daughters who found strength in solidarity, about chosen families forming, from digital whispers of empathy. My heart tightened as each comment scrolled by. These people, too, had carried invisible scars, and here they were, unafraid to expose them. On impulse, I tapped comment and typed a confession. My mother just told me I'm too sensitive and need to toughen up. It's the culmination of years of subtle cruelty. I'm terrified, but I can't stay silent anymore. I hit post and felt a tremor of fear. What if someone recognized me? But the silence broke almost immediately. Replies flooded in. I'm so sorry, you deserve better. I felt this deeply. You're not alone. Sending you strength. You're brave. Each response felt like a warm hand on my shoulder. My tears came then, quiet, relieving. I let them fall, my throat unclenching. The apartment no longer felt empty. Even across the digital expanse I was seen. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Amber. Proud of you. Thinking of you. Call me when you can. I typed back a shaky thank you and realized how life felt momentarily less suffocating. I sank onto the couch, green brightness reflecting in my tearful eyes. The card lay forgotten on the coffee table, its cruelty losing power under the gentle pulse of this newfound compassion. These strangers, Amber, even the barista's compliment, they were threads weaving a safety net beneath me. And yet, the ache in my chest remained, an echo of years spent tiptoeing around her jokes. But now, that ache was tempered by something else. The knowledge that others had walked this path and emerged stronger. I closed my eyes and let the support wash over me. The first time I admitted to myself, maybe I'm not too sensitive. Maybe sensitivity is strength masquerading in vulnerability. A soft chime signaled another notification. I opened it, a direct message from one commenter. If you ever need to talk, I'm here. My heart fluttered. I typed back. Thank you, that means everything. As I hit send, a quiet certainty settled into my bones. I would carry these scars, but I wouldn't let them define me. Unity had reached out, and in their words I found the first spark of healing. Is comfort enough to rebuild a broken bond, or is this the moment I finally let it go? 1 week later, I woke before sunrise, heart fluttering with something I hadn't felt in years, anticipation. Today was my second birthday, the day I chose myself over her cruelties. I padded to the window and watched the sky shift from ink to rose. No card from Mom would stain this morning. In the quiet, I reached for my phone and hesitated over her contact. 26 years of calls, birthday reminders, forced greetings, all stored in that name. My thumb trembled, then swiped delete. No confirmation chime, just an empty space where her voice once lived. I slid out of bed and dressed in the teal dress I'd bought for New Year's but never worn, the one that made me feel like someone worth noticing. I picked fresh flowers, sunflowers and white peonies, and arranged them in a glass vase on my dining table. Their bright faces reminded me that growth was possible, even after winter's frost. My phone buzzed with a group text from friends. Dinner at Mia's at 7. Cake on us, birthday cake. I smiled, real warmth this time. I'd spent the afternoon lighting candles in the journal I kept since the email, each word a testament to my journey. Now I added a new entry. I am enough. I choose peace. My pen lifted from the page, ink drying on a promise. I placed my mother's blue card in a small wooden box I'd bought at a craft fair. Its lid clicked shut. I locked it away in my closet drawer, alongside years of photographs I no longer wanted to keep. The weight settled into something light, closure, not regret. At sunset, I poured dark red wine in clear glasses and set the table with mismatched plates. One for me, one for the empty chair that symbolized my choice. I whispered to the empty seat, "Thank you for teaching me what I don't deserve." The words felt as freeing as laughter. Later, friends filled the room, voices weaving around me like warm blankets. We toasted to new beginnings, their smiles and jokes filling every corner of my heart. When Mia brought out a cake I didn't have to share with anyone but those who truly cared, I closed my eyes and made a wish, not for her apology, but for my continued strength. Outside, the city lights twinkled against the night sky. Back at my apartment, I stood before the mirror, fingers brushing my collarbone, where the moonstone necklace lay. I practiced affirmations I'd once felt too ashamed to voice. I deserve kindness. I am stronger than my pain. I am not defined by her words. My reflection looked back, soft, determined, whole. The scars remained, faint lines beneath my skin, but they no longer held me hostage. I turned off the lamp, letting moonlight bathe the room. In the hush, I whispered to the dark, I have reclaimed my story. And as I slipped beneath the covers, I realized hope wasn't just a spark. It was a flame I carried inside. The chapter of hurt had closed, and now, with chosen family at my side, my story was mine to write. Isn't that the greatest birthday gift of all?